And the film I used about the impact on HIV on persons with disabilities in Southern Africa often shocked my audience when a person with a severe physical disability revealed to camera that they had sex lives too, and therefore needed to be included in health education campaigns. It's over a year since I stopped teaching. Very students who get in touch with me refer to my lectures, but many recall the films that have changed their perspectives. The next one, please. Imagine yourself sitting in a cinema. The house lights dim and the screen is lit up. It is blank. In that moment, you can imagine any film you like. The limits are your imagination. But now the film begins. If it's a feature film, our role is to temporarily suspend our disbelief, be transported into the lives of others, and probably be transformed by so doing. If it's a documentary, with its claims to represent reality, we expect to be engaged by a crafted argument and evidence. Film can be very beguiling and very seductive. However, whether drama or documentary, it is important to remember that what you see and what you hear is framed by others, by their imagination, their understanding, and importantly, their intentions. It's important to ask, who is telling whose story to whom and why? Several years ago, I worked with Alex Ferry, who you can see here, sitting in the front of this photograph here, who was the director of the Southern African Federation of the Disabled. He is a great man with a wicked sense of humour, and Alex often introduced me to other people as temporarily abled. I was working with Alex and his colleagues to strengthen their research capacity so they could support their advocacy work with robust evidence. In his experience, research agenda on disability was overly controlled by career academics and development professionals. While they were well-meaning, Alex realised that this reliance meant that not only were important issues overlooked, but the opportunity for persons with disabilities to tell their own stories in their own words was being restricted. Alex wanted the disability movement to take a more direct control of the narrative. Alex's concerns about the authorship apply equally to social action filmmaking. Now, no matter how committed I am to tell stories about injustice and oppression, it is important to acknowledge that they will reflect my own experience. I'm not such a radical to argue that persons with disabilities are the only legitimate storytellers when it comes to disability. No, of course not. There's so much to learn from many perspectives. However, it is often the case that the privileged storyteller will emphasize oppression and the need for intervention and help. The non-privileged storyteller can reveal far more about the positive sense of agency, resilience, and capability that would otherwise be overlooked. Everyone has a story to tell, but not everybody has the opportunity to do so. Can we move on to the next? Thank you. Now, as I said, I'm the chairperson of Purple Film Productions, PFP for short. It's a small film production charity committed to making films that promote positive social change. It co-produces films with local filmmakers and is currently active in Sierra Leone, Kenya, Tanzania, and Malawi. Purple Film Productions has a wide agenda, including sustainability and health issues, such as HIV/AIDS. Now, several of our films have focused on disability, and I'd like to share with you some of the past strategies that we've used to raise awareness, educate, and tackle stigma through these films, and also a sense of our current direction as we seek to improve our impact. Next one, please. Thank you. To give credit where it's due, PFP has always worked hard to ensure that its stories reflects local needs and issues in an honest fashion. Whilst the approach differs with each film, the general process is that proposals, whether for a feature or documentary, will come from within that country, often an organisation working there, and possibly from local filmmakers. The Unknown, the shot you can see here, was a film shot in Kenya and focused on the trials and tribulations and ultimate triumph of a girl with cerebral palsy. PFP worked closely with Cerebral Palsy Africa, who I believe first suggested the topic, and provided contact with Kenya health experts and activists who helped to shape the screenplay, which was written by a PFP trustee. The lead character, Grace, who you can see here in this photo, was played by Vanessa Atieno, who herself lives with cerebral palsy. Whilst it's a drama, the story was built around the lived experiences of Grace and other Kenyans, and it is an honest depiction, I feel. I think this is why the film has been so successful. It's got that honesty to it. Next slide, please. However, no matter how entertaining or honest, an unwatched film is not going to change the world. To have impact, there needs to be distribution. However, this is a complicated area and there's no direct correlation between viewing figures and impact. Things would be easier if it was. Let me stay with experiences of the unknown. In terms of viewing figures, the unknown's been a great success. The film's been shown on Kenya several times and also on national television in Tanzania. But how can we assess the impact on viewing figures alone? So next slide, please. So instead of relying solely on broadcasting, what PFP does is we try to get the films out into the community. So we use mobile cinema kits to ensure that films are seen in the local communities where it's felt that, due to lack of access to information, social stigma persists unchallenged. And instead of just showing a film and simply walking away, what we do is our screenings are followed by a discussion with the community to explore issues raised in the film. We use trained facilitators. And so this interaction is a critical opportunity to bring change through asking and answering questions, and if needed, to refer the community members to key support services. So we don't just show the film, we engage as well. However good a film may be, so next one please, impact through punch, thank you. However good a film might be, I believe its biggest impact is seen when it's used as part of a broader intervention strategy, whether it's a community outreach program, a training session, or a classroom lesson, all of which provide the opportunity for further debate, reflection, and hopefully agreed action. It's important to recognize that impact has many sides. In Malawi, for example, where we've been screening a dub version of The Unknown, we've used physiotherapists who run a cerebral palsy clinic in the local hospital as facilitators. And I think this is really interesting that they've noted how their own understanding of cerebral palsy has been enhanced through having the opportunity to interact with patients in their own communities. And they think that this experience can actually help to improve service delivery. So next slide, please. In film, the shaping of the narrative is often shared. The screenwriter has a major role, but the director and editor are also significant contributors to the telling of the story. So as well as considering what's going on in front of the camera, it's also important to look at what's going on behind the scenes. Who is behind the camera? Who is directing? And who is editing? Traditionally, film production was preserved for trained experts. The equipment used to be very complex and very costly. The Unknown, the film we've been talking about here, was filmed mostly by Kenya crew, but these were hired, established professionals. The advance of digital technology has meant that cameras have become cheaper and smartphones now proliferate. And in recent years, we've witnessed the democratization of filmmaking. Next slide, please. Final slide. PFP is very keen to embrace these opportunities to open up new spaces for dialogue. In 2020, we've helped set up a film training group in Malawi. This group embodies my hope for the future. It consists of equal numbers of males and females. One member has a severe hearing impairment. Another, Mark, who you can see here on the right, is a person with albinism. The group are making great progress. They started from producing 1-minute films on their smartphones and are currently filming a 15-minute documentary exploring the stigmatization of persons with albinism, and Mark here is the producer. We hope this experience will provide the foundation for a full-length feature film to begin later this year. These are early days and we have much to learn. However, I believe this is a really positive response to the challenge of nothing for us without us. Mark and his friends have important stories to tell, and they now have the opportunity to do so. Of course, we still need to watch, listen, and to learn. Thank you. Last slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you so much. As a person who loves film, I do understand the power of filmmaking and the power of films in terms of engaging communities. And certainly, I think the work of Purple Fields, if you go to their website, you'll see a variety of films that they produce, they make, and they work with local filmmakers, which is really important. I think Kevin highlighted the importance of who is behind the camera and who is telling the story. And I think in a sense of the topic today, Lisilo Julikana, or The Unknown, the film that you produced recently, obviously comes to my mind because we have screened it within Upcoming Africa. And I wanted to ask basically for the audiences who are here, if they want to use the film for community engagement with partners in sub-Saharan Africa? How accessible is the film, and what should they do to access it?
Sorry, that to me in terms of access?
Yes, please, Kevin.
Yeah,
yes.
well, the film itself is available on YouTube, which you can connect to through the Purple Fields website. If access through the web is very difficult because of bandwidth or download time, if anyone wanted to get in contact with Purple Fields, we can always find a way to send a DVD or a memory stick with the film on it to you as well. So that's always possible. The film itself was made, because it was made in Kenya, was filmed in Swahili, but in Malawi, we've also dubbed a version in Chichewa as well. The film's also got subtitles in English. One thing I should mention as well, which our group in, again, this is a new way to make our films more inclusive as well. The filmmaking group in Malawi are very keen to make sure that the films also can be understood by persons with hearing impairments as well. So we're actually also putting on little sound boxes with I'm not quite sure what the sign language is in Malawi, what they use, but we're going to be using a little box there as well to use sign language so people with hearing impairments can also watch the film as well and learn from it. So that's another way we're trying to make filming more accessible.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. I've got lots of questions to ask you, and please, I know time is of essence and we're running out of time slightly, but if anyone has questions, please do put on chat box or raise your hand. Also to say, I think Andrew might be listening with interest because he works in Malawi. He does a lot of work with, which he'll talk about in a minute. But I think there's other people as well who will be interested to know how they can get in touch with you. So actually, Kevin, it'd be nice also to put your contact details maybe, or that of Purple Field on chat. So just in case
on the chat, okay, yes, yeah. I can do
that. In the meantime, we'll move on. We might come back for more questions to you, Kevin. But I'll move on to our next presentation, which will be by Dr. Andrew Aboso. And I won't say too much about his background because he's a good friend of mine, but also, nothing more, I shouldn't say more than that, but he's been very involved in community development in Wales, especially with the links to Malawi. He's an independent ophthalmologist within the NHS, and he works full-time doing that at Aneurin Bevan University Health Board. So he has been working with Site 2020 since 2002, to which he runs it with his wife, Sally Waboso. And yeah, I won't say more. Over to you, Dr. Andrew.
Thank you, Fadili, for your kind invitation and the opportunity to meet new friends and new opportunities and to share what we're doing. I apologize that Sally is not here. She was called away at short notice. As Fadili has kindly said, we've been operating this charity since 2001, 2002, initially in Nigeria and now in Malawi. My wife happens to be of Malawian descent. That's the connection. Next slide, please. Thank you. So for those of us who don't know where Malawi is, I will just pinpoint it. And most people recognize Malawi when you say, you know what? You know Madonna? You know where she gets her kids from? That's the country. That says it all. I'll make a brief mention of disability. I'm so happy that there was a mention from Kevin about albinos, because we do some work with the albinos, and I'm sure we have a lot in common. And there'll be lots of photos, and hopefully it will generate some discussion. Next slide, please. So it's a landlocked country surrounded by 3 countries. It's a long, it's got a beautiful, beautiful natural lake. which is the third largest in Africa. They have some lovely fish there, which are unique to that area. It's supposed to rank as one of the third, fourth, depending on which OECD index you look at, poorest countries in the world. But having been to Malawi a number of times, I don't know how Malawi can be regarded as a poor country myself, but you know, there you are. It's got everything. It really has. Next slide, please. Great. So for a number of years, we worked in a special needs school in just outside Blantyre. And this special needs school has children of various needs, but in particular, they deal with the visually impaired children. If you have been anywhere near a visually impaired child in Africa, you will notice that they are often put to one side, forgotten. Their growth is not as good. They sometimes show signs of autism because they have sensory deprivation. So they bang their head, or they nod, or have repetitive, or they have abnormal posture and stuff like that. So to engage these children in sports or any activity, whether it be dance, anything, transforms their lives. Next slide, please. Great. Now, if you're in Africa and you don't have sight, the figures suggest that up to 60% of children die within 1 year of going blind. It's that bad. If you're a girl and you are visually disabled or blind, you are at risk by a factor of 10 of sexual abuse or violence. The mortality rate, the number of children who die, is about 5 to 10 times higher for children who are blind. So in every respect, if you are blind in the developing world, you've got a bad card. So anything that can be done to improve their well-being will make a huge impact on these children. Next slide, please. Kevin has made mention of albinos. A lot of our kids are albinos. Now, I'm sure you all know what albinos are, but I will just highlight what it is. It's a lack of melanin. The difference between me and a Caucasian is the amount of melanin we have in our skin. There's a genetic disorder where you don't make enough melanin, both in your skin and in your eyes, okay? So what happens is you're born fair and you don't see well. For that reason, these children seem to be stigmatized. Now the culture, unfortunately, in Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, they've managed to get it into the local culture that these children have, their body parts have some kind of magical powers, and for that reason they are killed. There's been a lot about this on the BBC website, as you can see, and it's really trying to stamp out this trade. If you remember, you may not remember, many years ago there was a Scottish woman called Mary Slessor. She went to Nigeria because in the southern part of Nigeria, in a place called Calabar, they used to kill twins. If you had a twin, they killed the twins. And she dedicated her life to eradicating this cultural belief. And I think it was going to take something as radical as that to remove and disabuse people's minds about this myth about albino children. They don't sleep at night. They don't move on their own. The children are scared. You know, they have a multitude of psychological problems because of the issues of security. Next slide, please. So a few years ago, we started blind sport, or we tried to promote blind sport using one school as a model example. The reason we chose one school is if you choose something small, you learn from your mistakes, you learn from your successes, and you can multiply by many factors your success all around the country. That's the nutshell of what we're trying to do. We've introduced blind football with the help of wonderful partners, in particular the Royal National College in Hereford. They initially gave us blind footballs. They taught us the rules of the game. Just for people who don't know, a blind football is an ordinary ball that makes a loud noise, and it's much heavier. So it doesn't fly through the air like when Beckham kicks it. It's very slow. But the kids love it. And what's amazing is that the girls love it even more than the boys. And don't forget that girls are hugely disadvantaged. So to see a girl who would be in a corner completely socially isolated, just running and chasing a ball, you know, and throwing it to each other is so life enhancing. Goal ball also, and we have an annual sports day where we reward all the children who are involved. We give them medals, they have a party, they buy Coke and pop and popcorn, and you know, we really celebrate what they do. Why is this so important? Because we know the benefits of sport. I'm sure in the lockdown, for example, how many of us have really appreciated just a walk outside the house? So when I had to self-isolate for a few days, and my wife laughed at me when I said, you know what, I feel like Nelson Mandela. I'd only been isolating for 2 days. So I was, you know, I was made fun of. But I had not appreciated the impact of isolation. It's devastating. So you can imagine these children who don't go anywhere, they don't do anything. So the benefits to them are huge. Not only do they improve their self-esteem, their confidence, their communication skills, their team working, their cognition, their orientation and mobility because they're sight impaired, but it gives them a new lease of life. Next slide, please. Thank you. So these are just some photos of what they do. So you can see there's nothing fancy here. It's an ordinary field. Often there's no grass, you know, and we got these goal posts. They are plastic goal posts. You can buy in Argos or Tesco. Sometimes they have offers, and you put them inside a bag and you take it with Air Ethiopia or South African Airways or what have you, and you get them there. The blind balls are supplied by Royal National College and some donations from from IPSA, International Society for Blind Football. So the kids really go to town. And I remember very profoundly a few years ago when we had a tournament like this on prize giving day, the headmaster said to us, you know, he never believed that these blind children can play football. They just can't, it doesn't, you know, he just could not see how it was possible. And that is often the comment that other children make, other sighted children who become envious that these kids are having such a great time, you know, that actually they can play blind football. And to level the playing field, you can see some of them are given eye protection, eye masks, because they have various levels of visual disability, from complete blindness to just being able to see a hand in front of them. So to level playing field, we cover their eyes. So, you know, they have a level playing field. And sometimes we get involved. We like to get the PE teachers involved and the headmaster when he can, because they have a feel of what happens. Next slide, please. We do, this was an art project that Sally was involved in with some other volunteers just before lockdown in November/December 2019. So you can see we get local clay. We take eyes from the UK. Any of the game shops will have it. A hobby craft. They have a sensory, it's very sensory for them. The kids learn how to mold and how, you know, to adapt things. And they had a ball just doing that. And these are some examples of the work they undertook. Next slide, please. So what other things do we do? One of the issues, we like to listen to what our community are saying to us. What else? What else? How can we make a difference? What else can we do? Because of the albino situation, the children, they had a hostel, which not only was run down, but had no walls. You know, so you imagine a situation where you've got these albinos and visually impaired children sometimes with no windows and certainly no walls. They said to us, you know what, we would love a wall and a gate around the hostel to protect them. And so we raised money in the UK, and last year we were able to give it to them, hand over, you know, the wall to them. So that was something else that we've done. The other thing we do is we take out musical instruments. So somebody donated about 30 harmonicas. Now, harmonicas are very easy to carry, and the kids love them. So we gave them to all the blind kids, and they just love it. Next slide, please. So very briefly, there's a guy called Calon, who is the albino on the far right. I don't know if you can see him there. He represented Malawi in the Southern African Development Community Paralympic Games, which is like the EU. I think there are 14 countries that belong to the SADC region, and he won gold in his in the Paralympic sport. And we were speaking to him. I said, Calon, we didn't know you had this potential. When did you start to run? And he said, you know what? It's blind football. It was when I started to play blind football, I realized that I could run fast. And what was also funny was when we went to see them after he'd returned from Botswana, because he had to get a passport and kits. And the headmaster said to us, even I don't have a passport, but my student has a higher passport and he's gone to Botswana. So, you know, it's just amazing what can happen with these kids. Next slide, please. Little things that potentially could help us is we need more volunteers who can give time and their skills. If you know of anybody who can donate plastic goalposts, the girls, one of the reasons they don't like to play to come out is because they can't get on with skirts. They need some kind of cycling shorts, because in Malawi it's a very conservative society, which we fully promote and respect. We'd very welcome any ideas of how we can transport stuff over to Malawi. It's very, very expensive to courier stuff. So if anybody has links with transport companies or a courier company or with a seafaring company, we'd really welcome that. We're also, Fadil has really helped us with giving us information as to how to approach corporate bodies for sponsorship as part of their community enhancement program. So we're working on that. Thank you very much, Fadil. Next slide, please. So this is the blind football camp we had in December 2019. So what we're trying to do is we want to roll it out. Remember, I spoke about starting with one small institution, learning from your mistakes, learning from your successes. So now we invited 8 other schools that have visually disabled children to come to a sports workshop. And we spent a week showing them how to play football and playing with them. They played as well. And we wanted to get the women PE teachers, because the girls identify with the women. The girls will play if they see a female PE teacher. So some of them are women, and that was a wonderful thing to see. And so we all learned how to play football. And at the end of it, we gave them a starter kit. So they had plastic goalposts, they had footballs, they had whistles, everything to go and start in their schools. Unfortunately, COVID prevented us going back last year, but what we wanted to do was to visit them in their new schools and find out how they were getting on and how to promote what they're doing, kind of thing. Next slide, please. Great, so that's our contact information. You can contact Sally directly at Site 2020 Direct, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you so much. I know of Site 2020's work for some time, but I think when you actually visually see the workloads and the stuff that they're involved in, and I have been working with them right from the beginning, when the organization was set up. And so it's fantastic to see how the organization is improving, developing, and expanding activities. Just want to say, yes, we have very little time, so apologies. It doesn't allow a lot of space for question and answers. And I can see Kevin already sharing a Facebook page to the documentary that they're making on albinism. And I'm sure Andrew will be interested in seeing how you can connect with that and possibly, trying to link the two together. But one thing for me, Andrew, just one question for me, I guess, in relation to the presentation you've done. What's your advice on sort of Welsh organizations were interested in using sports as a way to amplify voices, to raise awareness, especially in relation to people with disabilities. What's your advice in terms of those organizations?
It's an icebreaker, completely. I mean, if you look at developmental psychologists, a parent or a psychologist, the first thing they'll do with a child is not only go down to their level, but they will throw some toys on the floor. Once you play with somebody, you completely break the ice. So, you know, that says it all, really.
Apologies for the background noise. And I guess for the work that you've been doing, you have been able to start from a point where you didn't know so much about blind football. And in so many ways, it's not a thing that you need to be specialized in so much in order to get into, because at times, I guess people are fearful of doing this work. Have you got anything to say about that for people who maybe they feel like they don't have the expertise and maybe therefore not able to use sports as a tool?
I mean, blind football is very simple. I mean, there are lots of rules, but we just make it extremely basic and extremely simple. We do away with offside rules, for example. As long as the children are laughing and smiling and falling over and getting up again, that sums up blind football. You know, you just need somebody with a whistle and obviously a first aid kit and stuff like that, and just balls, and you get away. There's nothing fancy about it. I mean, I was speaking when we went to Hereford. We spoke to the founder of. He was the national coach for Blind Football UK, and he said he started. You know, that he said something that really inspired us. He said, "I started from my boots in a car park." If in Hereford they could do that, why can't we? So you just start with a ball and you roll it and you get going.
Thank you, Andrew. What a way to end. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
I think we will share the PowerPoint presentations. So if you are curious to know whether, to have more information about it, we'll share it around, and there will be Andrew's contacts and Sally's contacts there for you to pursue. Our final speaker is not, I think we're joined by double act. I think Fatima is here. She did join a few minutes ago. I don't know if she can hear us.
Oh, great. Fatima's there. Hi, everyone. This is Ruth Fabi. I'm in my early 60s, a white woman with greying dark hair tied back and wearing the black top. We were invited to come and talk a year ago, and COVID put paid to that. But Fatima is now in a room. I'm really pleased. I've been Facebooking her all the way through this conference to try and get her into the room. Her connectivity was a problem. But Fatima, I'll just give a little bit of background while you sort your camera out. I'm lead Disability Arts Nghymru. I've been involved in disability arts for nearly 30 years. And as a deaf girl growing up in a hostile environment, which was really, hello Fatima, really quite negative towards disabled people at that time. Segregation education was very much the usual for many disabled people. But in the 70s and early 80s, the disability rights movement really caught on in the UK, and we devised a really important policy framework for going forward, and that is a social model of disability. And it actually has been an incredibly empowerment model for disabled people, because it allows us to realise we're not the problem, we're made to feel a problem, we're not included. And suddenly having to be able to redress the issues by looking at societal issues really charges to change how disabled people in the UK and other Western countries, I have to say. It really caught on with places like Australia and the USA, who are moving with their own disability rights. But I'm so aware of the issues we have in the UK and how we've used the arts as a tool for change and challenge. And the lived experience has been something quite phenomenal in terms of what art we've been able to create. So much so now that disability arts is really recognised as a culture that comes from the lived experience. Too much of the work around arts is done to disabled people by non-disabled people. I don't want to cry anything about what's been said here because I don't know your background or anything, but there has been a very typical charity model which disabled people have tried to challenge and say, we want to take charge and call the shots in what we do. So I met Fatima a few years back when I won a Winston Churchill Memorial Travel Fellow Award to investigate the voices behind the work I knew was coming through in places like Africa and India, and wanted to meet people on the ground to see if disabled people's voices were leading in the same way as we were starting to in arts and culture. And that's how I got to meet Fatima. She'll tell you all about her work in a minute. But I just want to say it's been a really interesting development whilst I've been involved in disability arts, because the UN and the United Nations set out a charter in 2006, and Article 30 is all about the right for disabled and deaf people to be involved in the arts and in sports alongside other people, and not just be used as therapy or passive activity, but to really show we can be talented in these areas. And so the arts has been a critical tool to help change people's position in society, create work. I hope you're still there, Fatima. And I've been working in this way for a long time with setting up Dadafest and getting people through Liverpool into working in the arts. But part of my role was to link in with people from different places and countries. And being able to do that has helped me meet Fatima. So I'll shut up now and get Fatima to introduce herself and tell you the amazing work she does in working as a disabled woman to really change what's happening in Malawi with disabled young people in Blantyre, where she lives. Are you ready to speak, Fatima? You have to take your mic off.
Yeah, you might have to unmute, Fatima.
Okay. I'm still not hearing you. I don't think you've got your mic working. Shall I just give a little bit of an intro, Fatima? Fatima and her brother Rex have been teaching young disabled and deaf young people from their own home, from the grounds where they live, and doing an amazing job. And I knew my experience in Malawi. I met with the disability minister, and he said that as a country, they'd signed up for the UN Charter, which said all young people would have a right for education. But when young people were getting to go to school, often the teachers would let them in if they were disabled. So Fatima and Rex actually made a way, and they became an NGO in 2012. Are we able to hear you yet, Fatima? No.
If you turn up the volume on your phone, maybe be able to, because we could hear you at the beginning when you came in.
Can you up your phone? I don't want to speak your words for you. I really want people to hear you. I'm not sure if we're getting there. Can you try speaking now?
If you say something. Sorry,
And one of the points that Fatima said to me earlier is that if people, disabled people, people with disabilities are given the platform, they can do arts and sports. It's often they're just not given the platform to do it, to the places to do it. And it's been really good to hear Kevin and Andrew talk about their work. Fatima, are you online now with your voice? She's really trying to be part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe if you can try to sign out and try sign back in, because it did work when you came in. So maybe sign out and sign back in. We'll still be here.
To do that.
Oh, actually, no. Since you're using earphones, if you take your earphones off, it could help.
Take your earphones off. That's what could be.
Off the phone.
Yeah.
From the phone. Yes.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm late. My name is Fatima Kalima from Malawi. I'm the project officer at Forum for the Development of Youth with Disabilities. We work with youth in any kind of programs. So here I'll talk more about sports and arts on youth with disabilities. Youth with disabilities need to be involved in youth on sports and arts, just because that can be part of exposure, motivation, and it can also be part of preventing them from sexual harassment. Our organization have been doing that in 2015, whereby youth with disabilities were doing a lighting festival, which UNESCO Korea was funding us, and we received 3 awards in 2015, 2016, and 2017. When we were doing that program, I was seeing that youth with disabilities were paying much attention, and they were putting much of their effort in doing that. We had some who are deaf. They were able to recite poems using sign language, and those who are blind, and they were doing poems using gestures. So in our organization, we saw it that it is very important and it is very much needed that youth with disability should be involved in sports and arts. And when we talk about sports, I was trained as a coach in table tennis sport, but I've never done it like putting it on the ground just because of lack of resources. And we have other 8 girls who also do wheelchair basketball, but as of now they are not doing it just because they don't have resources to continue this. And still more, here we have computers whereby youth with disabilities, they learn how to use computers. So we also teach them as part of design, like how to publish cards, birthday cards, any kind of cards, and how to draw some flowers. And just because as of now we don't have any funding to find the one who can be teaching them how to do it, so we are no longer doing the project. That's so what is
you've given us a great background on all the things you've been doing, and honestly what she and Rex and other people who've been working with them have done is incredible to empower young disabled and deaf people. One of the things we've kept connected for is to be able to do a writing project, and Fatima's students have been getting quite a few awards through writing projects over the last few years. So we really want to get that connection in Wales and Malawi and getting writing from the lived experience of disability from both our countries and what that means. So we are hoping to connect more and more in the future. But what are the main issues you need support in, Fatima?
The main issue which we need support is part of arts and sports. so that we can involve youth with disabilities in doing that. And drama as well. We want to do like to expose youth with disabilities in doing drama and music as well.
Yeah. Thank you. I know we haven't got very long left, and Badili, you probably want to get some questions into the room. But thank you for pursuing yours to be with us, Fatima. I'm really glad we got here in the end. And thank you for giving us time to talk. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Fatima. Thank you, Ruth. This has been fantastic. I think having you, and I can honestly say it hasn't been intentional to have almost like an all Malawi crew, but seems like this is what has happened. And I don't know if Andrew knew Fatima, but definitely there's potential maybe, I don't know, to meet and get to know each other's work and see how you can work together. And thank you so much, Fatima. I wanted to ask you a question about
I think that we can link up so that we can be having some conversation.
Sure. And Ruth has shared your email address, to which I think Andrew and Kevin and other people will have access to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so you may have some emails coming over to you. Andrew,
Thank
did you
you
want
so
to say
much.
something?
No. If we get Fatima's email address, then that would be helpful. But I'm sure you can circulate this to us, Fadili.
Yes, I'll be able to do that.
Thank you.
I'll be able to do that.
It's
Thank
in
you.
the chat.
It's on the chat as well.
Okay, okay.
One question maybe for you, Ruth, from me is how, in terms of internationalism and the disability movement, how can Welsh community of disabled people be involved in these kind of international projects, and what kind of initiatives or, I guess, collaborations?
There's plenty to do, because artists can be the creative force behind it, and it's making sure that the things that go forward are just because disabled and deaf people want to do them. And knowing in the UK, we've had a major change around the presence of disabled artists into mainstream opportunities. And they're really positive role models. We want to see the same sort of thing happen in Malawi, raise the profile, the social stigma that is within some of the countries in Africa is quite scary, because very lives are threatened, more so than you get in the UK. But you still, when you look at the facts, the government from Malawi says there's only 3.8% million people there who are disabled, and that's rubbish. You know, there's far more than that. So we've got a lot to change in terms of policy thinking, how we can really influence change, and how we can get the UN to put substance to the charter as well. And we do need funding. And I know Fatima really does need that to do the work, because they do it on a shoestring, they really do. And it's phenomenal. She's been so committed to the young people there.
And unfortunately, we've lost Fatima, but I think our contribution is very much valuable. There's only one question from the audience is saying, how do we best move from therapy to social inclusion? I don't know if anyone would like to take that as our final question for today. How do we best move from therapy to social inclusion? Anyone willing to take the question?
Sorry, I mean, I know that it is about giving people a voice, empowering people, listening to what people want to do. There are lots of issues that have come out with COVID, which are really impacting people's presence and their fears again into going out and being accepted. We've seen in the news today, BBC, that the do not resuscitate orders being put on learning disabled people. We still negate the lives of disabled people. So we need the only way to do that is get voices to be responded to and listen, and disabled people to show what can be done if people start to put effort and believe in our voices as disabled people in the different countries we're in.
Thank you, Ruth, and thumbs up from Donald. Really want to say a huge thank you to all our speakers today. Fatima is not here, but really huge, massive thank you to Kevin, Andrew, and Ruth for taking part on today's session. I've got one last poll that we're going to launch. just to get your feedback on the session. I don't know if Hannah, have you managed to launch it? I think you should be able to see there. Great to get your feedback on the session and maybe how we can improve and any future sessions that you would like to see us hosting. Just to say that the summit is continuing. As I mentioned earlier, we have our last day tomorrow, to which we will have about 4 sessions altogether. And this is looking at inequalities in the community. So the results are coming in. People are very happy with the session. Would they recommend? I'll probably share the results at the end. And also my colleague will be able to post a SurveyMonkey on chat for any further feedback that you want to send to us. So I think, Peter, if you can put that on chat, please, that would be very helpful. I'll end the poll now. There's a fund there, long live Malawi. I can see there's strong links to Malawi today. People are very happy with the session. They will recommend definitely to a friend. Improved knowledge and confidence, that's coming very strongly. And there were aha moments, which is fantastic to see. Yeah, I'll stop sharing. Yes.
By coincidence, I don't know if anyone noticed, I'm actually wearing a Malawi flag on my shirt as well. So clearly the Malawi Mappy was here today.
I think it was, yeah, someone planned something. It wasn't me, even though I was planning organizing it. It wasn't me. But really, huge thank you to everyone who took part in the session, to our speakers and those who are here today. And yeah, hope you continue to take part on other sessions within the summit. Hope you have a good evening and thank you very much.